First, one of the big questions I constantly get is like, when is PowerShell 7 going to show up in Windows inbox, right? And I understand the complete customer concerns here. Like for a lot of enterprise customers, they can't use stuff that is not shipped as part of Windows. There's a lot of policies in place, even if it's signed by Microsoft and developed by Microsoft with community help, they can't just deploy PowerShell 7. So one of the things that we are, let me see, is this going to work? Hold on. How do I? Oh, there we go. All right. So one of the things we are actually, before I talk about the quote unquote solution, let me make sure everyone understands the problem of why we can't just literally ship PowerShell 7 Windows. There's two big problems. One is Windows itself comes with .NET Framework. PowerShell 7 is developed on what used to be known as .NET Core and just called .NET now. And those two things are compatible, but not the same thing. So for PowerShell 7 to work, we need to actually bring .NET with us because PowerShell 7 won't work with the .NET Framework runtime. Okay, so long version short, that means that you have both .NET Framework because parts of Windows depends on it, and also we have to deploy .NET. So that the size is one of the concerns. Now there are ways we could potentially reduce some of the size, which means reducing functionality. But the bigger problem is not that. It's really that, and just to be clear, I'm not trying to throw .NET team under the bus. They have legitimate reasons for doing this. But the .NET long-term support lifecycle doesn't match what Windows requires. Windows requires basically 5 plus 5 years, and if you're in Azure, sometimes they extend it even more. So it's 10 plus years of support. .NET Team's long-term support lifecycle right now is up to 3 years. So 3 years is much less than 10 years. So we can't ship something in Windows that cannot be supported. Supported meaning security patches and things like that. So the thing that we're trying to do now is just to make it, okay, how can we make it really easy to deploy it on Windows in a almost inbox experience? So, we currently already deployed to WinGet, and WinGet, I believe in the latest builds of Windows is part of Windows now. And we also deployed to the Windows Store. Of course, Windows Server doesn't have WinGet or the store at this point in time. So you still have to go to like GitHub, get our MSI release and install it that way. So one things we're developing, and I don't know when this will actually show up, is we're developing a command literally called install-PowerShell. I don't recall if we landed on PowerShell or PowerShell 7, but basically it is a native command, so you don't even need to run it from Windows PowerShell, which also means that you could run it from potentially WinPE if you're in those environments where it doesn't come with Windows PowerShell by default. And basically it's going to install PowerShell 7 for you, right? So that is coming. We have a whole RFC, which is a request for common spec that we had published in our PowerShell RFC repo prior to kind of details the capabilities of that. So we're hoping that that will at least alleviate some of the enterprise concerns about how to deploy this more massively across hundreds or potentially thousands of machines.